This is the channel for the woman who's done playing small, the woman who knows there's a fire in her belly, a voice in her bones, and a destiny she's done apologizing for. If you're ready to unleash the woman you were born to be, hit subscribe and join the movement. I'm Leona Schrock, and let's rise together.
I am actually so excited to do today's episode. There's been so many conversations happening behind the scenes about the betrayal wound that happens when you are raised in hardcore religion. This is going to help you gain deeper understanding of yourself and how you show up and just why you feel like you're in a constant tug of war of trust with self, with others, and with God. So when you've been raised in hardcore religion, you self-trust is non-existent. There is authority all around you. And something that I've noticed that when you're in it, you don't realize because it's all that you've ever known, right? But when you've left it and you're outside of that, and now I know for me, I was the type that nobody is going to tell me what to do because I lived in what I was told to do, how to be, how to think, and how to not feel for almost 30 years. So you can be guaranteed nobody is going to tell me what to do. And in that, what that was really saying is, I don't feel safe to trust anybody. I don't feel safe to trust myself. I don't, because now you're taking what you've been taught and raised your whole life. You've left it, but just because you've left it doesn't mean your body has left it. And when you are raised in an environment where there's so much authority, you never had the space to develop your own sense of self. You never had the space to develop your own sense of self trust. And in such a controlled environment, there is so much conditioning that if you do the wrong thing, then there's going to be severe consequences. And it's always, what are people going to think of what you do? What are people going to say? And you learn how to suppress yourself really well. You learn how you condition yourself to show up in a way that is likable to the community. Because if not, especially as a woman, and I'm obviously giving this through the lens of a woman, but I say this also because I lived it and I breathed it. And I was a member of the church. And I remember sitting in church service because they have church in this, well, they have church every other Sunday, but they have service in spring and fall where they go over the rules and the regulations and all the things. And you are taught as a woman that if you don't, there's a line that you say, I could probably still say it if I really tried to say it. Um, but I would have to practice it a hot second. Anyways, there's a line that you have to say, and that is an agreement of the rules that they have put in place. Like they go around and they ask everybody, the preachers do, they ask everybody if you're in agreement. And basically, in English terms, you're saying that yes, I abide and I agree that I'm going to follow these rules and regulations. And then they have like the bread and the wine and all of that. And this is what seals the church. This is what seals the commitment, the covenant, and all the things of the community. And so you're taught in that if you're a woman and you don't agree to let your husband know, like it is forbidden, it is frowned upon, it is shamed upon, it is looked down upon if you would speak up in the church. And so I've noticed even some people who have left hardcore religion, coming from the Amish, yes, but not even, this isn't the only hardcore religion that has this belief, but sometimes the women don't understand why they feel so constricted, why they shrink, why they have so much shame and guilt. Well, just because you might not have been a member of that church, your ancestors were. And so you're living with the generations flooded down. But I remember sitting in church so often and being like, this is bullshit. I am betraying myself right now to keep the peace with something I am absolutely not in agreement with. And there was so many times that I got in trouble with the church not being, because you might be able to take my voice away, but doesn't mean you can take my actions. I was the one that got in trouble for the way that I decorated my house, for the way that I dressed my kids, for the clothes that I wore that weren't homemade, that weren't necessarily in the rules, right? I got in trouble so many times because it was going to ooze out of me one way or another because I don't agree. Like, and especially with my character and who I am, of being in integrity, of what do you mean I can't do this, but I have to be in agreement in order to maintain and be a member of the church. And at that time, obviously, I was married, I had kids. Looking back, I'm like, why didn't I just stand up and be like, I don't agree with all of this stuff, right? But I didn't know what I didn't know back at that time. I did know that this was not something that I wanted. So there's all these ways, like when you grow up as a child and you have the questions of the religion and you ask and you want these answers, you are taught that that's just the way that things have always been. This is the way that we do things. Don't question it. Another mark of self-betrayal. So now you unconsciously have grown up in an environment where you know really well how to betray yourself. And so when you leave and now you know the truth, you know that the rules are not biblical, and you are now living a new truth, doesn't mean the wound of self-betrayal has now been healed, because now you're also realizing that you were grown and raised by a family and a community that, even though I know in our adult mind we're like, well, they didn't know better, you feel betrayed by. You're like, wait, I thought the very people that I trusted the most, that were supposed to love me and raise me, and was the very, I was in my most innermost vulnerable place and space that I could be, and my childlike wonder, everything that I was infused with isn't even a truth. So now you start to question, well, I don't know who I can trust. And it typically creates a shield of, I don't trust authority. But here is where it creates this mind fuck. You don't trust authority, yet you believe that authority is outside of you. You have a really difficult time making decisions because you don't trust yourself. You have been hardcore wired to betray yourself, to do what is in the comfort of surroundings. Because even though now you have left all of that, your conditioning is still wiring and firing. So, this is why a lot of people who leave hardcore religion get frustrated and get confused because they don't understand why they're not actually having the transformation that they truly desire after they have left. And it's because of some of these core wounds that are happening. And this is a mastermind class in itself that can be taught. But one of the issues, another issue that comes up a lot is commitment. You your relationship with commitment. So if you struggle to be consistent in your life, you struggle to make commitment, you struggle with when people get too close to you, you have a difficult time saying yes to things, not because you fear like you won't show up. You have the fear of disappointing somebody. You have the fear that there's going to be a consequence on the other side of that. And so you isolate your soul. You might not isolate yourself physically. You might be in, like I said, the groups, the churches, the Bible studies, you might be in the friends, but your soul feels isolated because deep down you have a terrifying feeling of ever being confined again in a place, in a space where you weren't given a voice. But you don't feel safe yet to give yourself the voice. You don't feel safe yet to show up for yourself. And this is where it's not about fixing yourself, because a lot of what I've noticed, and I remember I lived with this for, I think it was 3 years ago, maybe, that I really truly had the transformation where I went from leaving, fixing myself and feeling broken, to understanding that it might not have even been 3 years ago. It might have been 2 years ago, because like I don't know, my life is like, I have so much that happens and I keep going on, but um, that I left that I'm broken, I'm feeling that I'm hurt, feeling the need to be fixed. To it's not that there's something wrong with me. I'm peeling back the layers to going deeper, to coming home to myself and who God has designed me to be. And when you come from a place of like, I need to fix myself, and you come from a place of like, I'm broken, then there's this endless track that you're running off of that is coming from a place of lack. It's coming from a place of I'm never enough. It's coming from the place of I can't show up fully and I can't truly be myself because I have to hide. I have to mask who I truly am because it's not safe for me to be fully seen to be me because there is something wrong with me. Still looking at trying to figure out what is wrong with me. That's going to show up in your relationships. That's going to show up in the way that you make money. That's going to show up in your family. That's going to show up in every single area of your life. And it creates a lot of frustration. I know because I lived it, breathed it, and it's something that I have been deprogramming for many years in my life. So, with that, is the way some of the small ways that you can start healing this in your life is creating the safety inside of yourself that you can trust yourself to make decisions that it is safe for you to show up for you. Another one that is wrapped around this betrayal wound is the guilt of choosing you, the guilt of you making yourself a priority because it was selfish. You needed to sacrifice yourself and you needed to serve others and betray your own needs, but you weren't aware of this. So now you think, oh, well, it's selfish if I choose myself first. No, it's selfish if you betray yourself and you continue to abandon yourself to serve others. Because what ends up happening is you end up giving from a place of lack. You end up giving from a place of you'll end up feeling resentful, bitter, and angry. And I see this in a lot of women with their relationships. Is I know, hi, I walked it when I was married, was you become resentful, angry, and bitter because whenever that feeling of guilt comes up, you want to do something to ease the discomfort of that guilt. So you go and get that dopamine hit of doing something, which is just an instant hit, but isn't actually meeting that deep core part of yourself of you having the desire to feel seen, heard, and understood. So as human beings, we have three core needs. That is seen, heard, and understood. And I want you to start asking yourself the question, do I feel seen by me? Do I feel heard by me? And do I feel understood by me? And something that we recently discovered in my own self, my own journey is I used to come from a place of like when I would express myself where I would kind of I wasn't explaining myself anymore, but I was justifying why I was doing what I was doing. And it was because subconsciously I had this belief that I was going to fight for what I had, what I really wanted, because I had to fight to leave the amish. I had to fight to leave my marriage. I had to fight to get us out of bankruptcy. I had to fight for my dreams. And it was like every time that I started to show up for myself, because if you look at all the patterns, then I had all of these people come at me and was like I was wrong for it. So my nervous system was not feeling safe to just simply be like, what I want, and this is what I'm gonna have, and I'm not gonna justify why I want it and why I'm going to have it. It simply is because it's the desire that God has placed on my heart. It's here, it's mine, and it gets to be that easy. And that's another thing is in the betrayal wounds, you over explain yourself a lot and you justify yourself. Now, a lot of this stuff is you're going to start noticing because now I'm making you aware. Have you ever heard somebody say to you, you don't have to defend yourself? Like, you're, it's okay. Like, you're allowed to have that. I remember my kids used to say to me sometimes, like, Mom, why are you defending yourself? Or why are you explaining the situation? I was like, what? And they're like, it's okay. You can. And I'm like, but back here, I couldn't because it was always as a child, as a teenager, and even as an adult, the moment that I began to express myself, the moment that I began to use my self expression, was that in the way that I dressed? Was that the way that I decorated my house? Was that in what it was that I wanted for the way that I raised my kids? Was that in my own self of what my own dream was? It was, oh, that's selfish. Don't go there. Oh, don't do that. Now you're out of alignment. Or like that's against the rules. Or now you're causing some kind of, like flare up in the church, or people are going to look at you funny, or they're going to talk about you in a certain way. So now you've been indoctrinated and infused with shame, fear, and guilt. And your body carries that. It carries the emotions of each time that you were indoctrinated with all of this stuff and you were infused with it. And it taught you to shrink yourself. It taught you that it is safe for you. You only feel safe when you betray yourself and you abandon yourself and you shrink yourself to make everybody else comfortable. And so, what we do when all of that stuff comes up is when those emotions start bubbling and start surfacing, and because it's something that you have lived with your whole life, you just kind of think it's normal. Your soul knows it's not normal. You're in a war. This is the biggest conversation piece that I have with women is the hiddenness, the war of like, I have had kind of conversations with people about this, but I don't feel understood, or I don't really know how to navigate. I've just learned how to live with this, or I kind of feel like I'm going crazy, or I feel like I'm losing my mind, or I don't understand what is going on. You don't understand what is going on because it's not being talked about enough. And this is why that I am being the voice to help women reprogram from religion, because it's something that goes so deeply within inside of your body, and your body is holding those emotions. And so when you start observing and you start noticing those emotions, is what we do typically is we will do whatever it takes to revert back to safety, because you don't want to feel it, because you're like, ugh, because it takes you back to that place. And so what you're going to start integrating in your life is you're going to start grabbing a journal and a pen, and you're going to become best friends with that journal. You're going to start talking about it, and you're going to start getting it out of you, because this is like poison for your body. This is why so many women have health issues that have been in relationships. This is why so many women say, my man doesn't listen to me, because you are speaking from your head and you are not expressing from your heart. Men want to feel you. I'm not an expert in the relationship field, but what I do know is I work with men on the daily, not in my coaching business, but in the house renovation business. And it's not about feeling, but there is a way to communicate. And when you don't feel safe to be seen, you're not going to feel safe to express yourself. And this takes practice, and this takes you showing up for yourself, you showing up for you, yourself, and you in this. And when you feel those hits of shame, when you feel that guilt, when you feel the need to explain yourself, when you feel the need to justify, when you find that you're abandoning yourself, this is not about fixing yourself. This is for you to stop betraying yourself. And this is for you to start coming home to yourself and showing up for you to create that trust within inside of yourself. And when you show up for you, you create the safety for you to start expressing yourself. And also, you don't need five different people to tell you that you're correct about something. You are you. You're allowed to feel and express what it is that you think or that you feel. This is also something that shows up big time, because it's like, what happens, and I did this big time in my life. I had to go through a lot of deconstructing with this. Even though I was raising my kids, I was alone as far as being a leader in my family. I didn't realize how much I was looking externally still to be like, is this okay? Is this right? Even though I am the one that is like, nobody's going to tell me what to do. There was so many times where I was like, ugh, I just, is this like, is it okay to think this way? Am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? Because I didn't know how to fully embody that I could trust myself and my intuition. And it's not that you can't ever run something by somebody else and be like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? But I do remember for years and years and years, I had this one best friend who I would run to her for everything, because it was, I needed to know outside of myself that this was okay. But now I'm at a place where I'm like, yeah, This is okay. I don't need an external authority to tell me, even though she didn't feel like an authority, it was, I can trust myself. I can believe in myself. I can trust in myself. I can show up for myself. It doesn't matter what people think or are going to say. Do I care? Absolutely. I care what people think and say, but I'm not controlled by it. I care because I have a heart, but I also know that it's safe for me to be me, just like it's safe for you to be you. So in this whole episode, what I want you to walk away with, and I want you to carry with yourself, is the ability to understand that it's all within inside of you. It's safe for you to start showing up. And how you create that safety is to give yourself a place of self expression for you to start to. And I would highly recommend working with somebody. I have worked with so many different coaches. My first investment was what, 7 years ago? There's only been several times in my life where there was like 2 to 3 months maybe that I wasn't working with somebody. Find the coach that works for you. I have 3 months open to work with somebody to create that transformation. And I also have my free Facebook community group where we're doing the 40 days soul glow up. And I'm also creating the CEO, oh my gosh, the CEO identity framework. And so that's coming out. And I'm eventually going to be doing a group thing, but I'm not exactly sure what that looks like. Start working with somebody because in the beginning, you are going to need reassurance, even though you don't actually need to go outside of yourself for external validation. You're going to need somebody who can has the capacity and the space to actually hold you energetically, where you get that nourishment and you get that nurturing that you never got. Because this is what I'm going to say. If you grew up in a religious household, the chances of you being emotionally neglected are very, very high because emotions are not welcomed in religion. And what you don't know is what you don't know. And looking back at my coaching history of who I hired, it was always people who I felt were like a mother to me. And I now realize it was because my soul was craving the nurturing and the nourishment from that I didn't get from that motherly love of my my expression, my voice, my emotions, my feelings, my thoughts. They're safe. And also on top of that, when you are working with somebody, that's where that happens because the reassurance of like, yeah, you're not going crazy. You're not losing your mind. Yes, get it out. Moving through those emotions. So there's room on the inside of you to start embodying who God has designed you to be. It's this beautiful process that you don't have to walk through alone. And one last thing that I want to say about that is community. So even though you're okay with surface level being in community, this is why you are okay with going to church. This is why you are okay showing up in Bible studies. This is why that you're okay showing up in certain places that are kind of familiar because you can still hide. Here's the thing, but when there's community where this is what you are craving, when it's the raw and it's the real and it's the authentic and it's the nourishment and it's the connection. We are created for that connection. That's where the tug of war comes in because it's like, I'm going to be held accountable and I don't want to be committed because that commitment piece is what causes you to hiccup because you're like, but if I commit, I don't want anybody to have authority over me. I'm not about to be controlled again. I don't want anybody to truly see me because what if I disappoint them? Because I don't want to experience the shame or the guilt of not actually showing up. Here's the thing. It's not like that when you're actually working with a coach. When you are truly seen and acknowledged and felt, and you are held in a space where you can expand, where you can breathe, because that shame and that guilt's got to get out. It's got to. It's the lowest vibration that you are vibrating from in your world. There's a whole identity shift that happens when you get in those places and spaces. So that being said, show up big, go invest within inside of thyself. My goodness. And if you have any questions or comments, you know where to find me. I will see you next week.